Good morning. It's my pleasure to welcome Karen Worstell. Karen is a serial CISO for iconic companies across industry sectors and a Silicon Valley technology leader. Her keynote presentation is titled Love Your Cyber Life, Wear Your Bra, and provides recommendations for a successful career in cybersecurity. All yours, Karen.
Great. Hey, thank you so much for inviting me to speak to you this morning. I have multiple cameras here, so I'm going to take a minute to kind of get adjusted to where I'm looking because I want to be looking at you. I'm very grateful to have the opportunity to be here today, and I hope you'll get a lot out of this. And as we come to the end of the presentation, if you have any thoughts or questions, I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have. So many years ago, I stood in the produce section at the local market looking for apples. Apples, apples, apples. Where were the affordable apples? Because you see, I had a 2-year-old and a 5-year-old, and I had $13 in my pocket to last me for the next 2 weeks. 49-cent per pound apples, which seems like such a bargain today, they were completely out of reach. And in desperation, I swallowed what was left of my pride, and I went to the produce manager to ask him if he had any apples that he had pulled from the shelf that he'd be willing to sell to me for a discount. And it's so vivid in my mind right now, remembering that still small voice of inner wisdom that I could hear that said, there has to be a better way than this, and you can do this. So about that same time, my biggest ally, my big geeky hacker brother, Michael, he came over to my house, and across my kitchen table, he spread out a TRS-80 Model 1 computer with a serial number of 6 and said to me, "Sister, you need to learn to code." Well, I'm a 98% left-brained creative. I studied music performance, and I did that until my early 20s. I thought when I was young, I would grow up and design ball gowns for Barbie dolls. I designed and sewed all my own clothes all the way through college, and I had managed to get undergraduate degrees in chemistry and biology through sheer will and hard work. But still, this whirring, blinking machine intimidated me. I was sure that if I did something wrong, typed in something wrong, it would go up in smoke. So I finally sat at that keyboard and tentatively typed in the words HELLO, hit enter, and nothing bad happened. And that blinking 9-inch monitor with that amber cursor, it just kept blinking at me. And all the various ribbons and cables and components just sat there. So with Michael's help, I learned to program and go beyond playing games. I started programming in Visual Basic. And then I taught myself a programming language called Forth. And I loved programming, and I found out I was really good at it. So when the local graduate school opened up a program in computer science for a master's degree, that's when I heard that voice again, and it said, you can do this. So have you ever had that experience when you had kind of that heartfelt inspiration about something that you knew could happen, something that you knew you could do, and then your head starts all kinds of noise? Some people call it imposter syndrome. For me, my head got super noisy, and it sounded like this. I thought you wanted to be a good mother. Don't forget, you have a 2-year-old and a 3-year-old. By the way, you have 0 money, and you suck at math, which I kind of do. So to make a long story shorter, I applied. I got in. 2 years later, I graduated from university with my master's degree in computer science. My first job happened before I finished my thesis as a security analyst. And 15 years later, I left my job as the Chief Information Security Officer at Microsoft to start my own cybersecurity consultancy and share my lessons learned and experiences toward a more inclusive work culture where everyone has voice and an impact. So you may think this is an extraordinary journey, from a broke mom of toddlers to a Chief Information Security Officer of multiple iconic brands like Microsoft, AT&T, Russell Investments. But what I know for sure is that just like all of you, this journey happened one ordinary day at a time. It took an unshakable belief in that still small voice that carried me through it all. And it took showing up every day, even when things got tough. And as I look back on it, it took a lot of allyship, starting with my big brother, Michael. People who believed in me and held me up, people who made it possible for me to go even further, to go to university as a broke mom of toddlers, and to help make sure my kids were cared for. That path to the top of my profession, in large part, happened because of three things that I'm going to talk to you about today. Whenever it got tough, these three things helped me. They helped me by reminding me it can be better than this, and you can do this. So today I'm here to share with you those three things, because tech can be far better than it is now. And I believe with all my heart that it is within your power and mine to make it so. You see, tech suffers from a lack of diversity. It's a lack of inclusion and a lack of equity. 30 years ago, when I got my master's degree, women were 34% of the computing workforce. Today, that number is far south of the 23% that it officially hit in 2016 when the AAUW published its report on women in STEM called Why So Few. Every area of STEM over the last 30 years has shown growth in diversity and inclusion, except computing. And the huge question for me when I learned that fact was why. Part of my path to that understanding, it includes what seems like a huge detour, but in hindsight now it makes perfect sense, because at the time that report came out, I was a chaplain. I had just completed 2,000 hours of clinically supervised training in pastoral care, in addition to another master's degree, and I was serving as the palliative care fellow at the VA hospital in Portland. Throughout my time as a chaplain, one of the things that I noticed was that I had seen firsthand the similarities between the distress in people in the tech sector and distress of families and patients in crisis. And there's a principle in chaplaincy called the principle of proximity. And what that basically says is that the chaplain does not sit in her foxhole, the chaplain does not sit in her field tent waiting for the front line to come and make an appointment. She goes and sits with the front line in the foxhole. And my foxhole is in tech. My still small voice said to me again, tech is your foxhole. It can be better than this. You can do this. And so I made the decision at that time, when I learned this information about parity and equity and inclusion in tech, and left the chaplaincy and came back to tech. And I returned with a big, hairy, audacious goal to create a more inclusive work environment and to reverse the trend of women and underrepresented groups leaving tech in my lifetime. So these facts are current. I'll give you a few facts, and then we're going to dive into the three things. 6% of partner level pay in big tech goes to women. This pattern carries across all of tech in a milieu that author Emily Chang calls brotopia. It's a symptom of a culture that doesn't value the voices of people who are different than the decision makers at the top. Life cycle processes in HR are designed, unfortunately, to reinforce the existing dominant culture. And you, if you have differences, must fit in. I do an exercise in all of my workshops that sounds like this. It's kind of designed to make everyone feel equally uncomfortable right at the beginning and break the ice. But I have everyone walk around the room 3 times. The first time we walk around the room as ourselves. The second time people walk around the room, I ask them to do so by embodying the energy that is the opposite of what they embodied when they walked around the room the first time. And the third time we walk around the room, we're not supposed to walk around the room as anything and be completely neutral. And when we debrief when this is over, the feedback that I always get with every single group is that walking around the room the first time as ourselves feels great. The second time we walk around the room, everyone spends about 30 to 50% of their energy trying to figure out who they're supposed to be. And the third time they walk around the room, people use the language like, all the energy went out of the room. We looked like zombies. Time slowed down. And my answer to that is welcome to corporate America. Because you see, we don't create an environment where people can bring all of their variety and all of their rainbow and all of their diversity into the workplace and shine and create the kind of work environment where creativity and innovation really thrives. What we do is we create a corporate blender where everyone comes in with all of their variety. We put you all in because to fit, you must blend to bland beige. Right? So let's get to why we're going to talk about what we're going to talk about today. Because here's the truth. When we lift one up, all rise. So when we embrace the benefit of inclusion in the cyber business, it's equivalent to promoting creativity, innovation, and diversity of thought that will help us in this asymmetric war that we're fighting right now and that's eating our lunch. So this is our foxhole. We're in it together. It matters for all of us in cybersecurity because creating a workplace where everyone has a voice is the right thing to do. And because we cannot begin to address the challenges that we face in cyber today when our community is disengaged out of frustration. For the next little bit, I'm going to show these 3 pillars that you can do right now, every day, and that will make a difference. 3 things: belief, resilience, and allyship. And yes, that spells bra. In case you wondered where that came from, the first pillar in the difference that you can make is belief. When Megan came to our 2-day intensive that we do, she was a senior software engineer, and her experience led her to believe that it was best to fly under the radar. She was frustrated that although she was considered a high potential employee, she did not receive the visibility, opportunities, or compensation that her work deserved. And after our 2-day intensive, this is what she wrote. I have a renewed sense of self-awareness and confidence, and I've learned that my professional self-worth, listen to this, very important, is in no way dependent on what I am able to accomplish, how productive I am, or how others perceive me. I've also learned that the true value in making genuine connection is making genuine connection with the people that I work with, and that I don't need to do it all on my own and get by on mere merit and solid work ethic. I'm much more likely to ask questions, contribute in meetings, and admit that I don't understand something and talk to people about my work experience and how things are going with me. I'm a lot more confident in my skill set, and I'm better at reading my own emotional state and attempting to read others. I'm much more comfortable with reaching out to people. Those are Megan's words. When we believe we can make a difference, we do. This was not something that we did to fix Megan. She already had all of the ability to make this happen. It just took a little bit of a reset. The mindset reset that happened with Megan was almost instantaneous. She went on to influence her leadership. She helped shift the culture, got visibility, got a promotion, and a degree of assurance that was incredibly self-satisfying for her career. The power of belief to make a difference is a hope that comes deep from your own inner wisdom. Just like the inner wisdom that spoke to me at that very beginning of that journey, unlocking the power of that belief comes from knowing how to listen to that inner voice and believing it. So why don't we do this all the time? Because most of the time, we as cyber people are all up in our heads. We deal with systems and data and facts and metrics. And when you're in your head, it's very hard to pay attention to that still small voice. Believing in the difference you will make begins with knowing your inner self, and knowing that your unique inner wisdom is powerful. Listen to it. Make room every day for what I call the download, and setting aside the to-do list and the head noise and just listen. So what is your inner voice saying to you right now, besides when is she going to finish her talk? I invite you to take a moment and listen and record a voice note on your smartphone when this talk is over and capture that. Get accustomed to listening to your own still small voice, the voice of your heart, and capture that each time without judgment and without all the noise from your head. It is telling you something important. And at the end of the week, with all of these notes you've captured, review them. Do you see a pattern? Does any particular message really stand out? So that's all I have to say about belief. Let's move on to the next topic in our 3 points. The R in BRA stands for resilience. Resilience is basically the ability to get up one more time than you've been knocked down in its simplest form. It's easy to say, and it takes being brave. It takes courage. It takes knowing yourself well enough that you don't believe the fake news that your own head tells you about what other people think of you. This is the antidote to imposter syndrome, by the way. It means not succumbing to imposter syndrome. It means overcoming that feeling that once people find out who you really are, they won't support you anymore. Resilience takes knowing the warning signs of burnout, of knowing when you are just surviving and not thriving. It takes courage to take time for self-care, for fueling your brain and your body in the best possible way. And resilience is the courage to say at the end of each day, I will try again tomorrow. In our 5-day online challenge that we call Flame Proof, which is another word for personal resilience, I walk you through the 5 steps that could change your life and not only help you, but help your team. A Rockstar senior engineer recently did the program and wrote this to me just yesterday. I was stuck in a vicious burnout funk, and Ms. Worstell's Flame Proof Your Career reignited and energized my motivation to focus on priorities and goals in my professional and personal life. Considering the insightful lectures combined with exercises that elicit self-exploration, I highly recommend the course. The journey allowed me to develop the skills necessary to evaluate my needs and desires, such that I could identify and realize career ambitions in a healthy fashion, and while ensuring I took care of myself and my family. I was thrilled to hear that. So for anyone interested in more info on that, please DM me on LinkedIn. And even if you're not interested in the course, that's fine. Please DM me on LinkedIn following the presentation. I would love to hear from you and connect there. Let's talk just a little bit more about burnout for a minute. Do you know the number one? I always ask this of cyber people. Do you know the number one sign of burnout in an organization? It's cynicism, right? Cynical jokes in cybersecurity, by the way, are the best, but cynicism is born from a wounded place. Cynicism comes from life experience that was traumatic or deeply disappointing, and we all have that. For many people, cynicism is the protective mechanism that's not rational, but it goes like this. If I expect that people are self-serving, self-interested, and incompetent, I won't ever be sucker punched by trusting someone who will only let me down. That's cynicism. Have you ever heard that in your organization? Let me tell you this. The big problem with cynicism is that it's contagious. Cynicism, its impact on organization is like pouring gasoline on a campfire in a bone-dry grassland during a Chinook wind. We are most often willing to believe the negative and not shift perspective to look for the positive. I have an exercise I call turn it and turn it. And the next time you see something that seems very much out of character, ask yourself this question: what's up with that? Don't get mad, get curious. Take the decision and turn it around and examine every possible angle of it so that you can understand why the decision was made the way it was. All right, quickly, let's talk about allyship. I know I'm running out of time here, so I just took a look at the clock. Allyship basically is the third component in BRA. Allyship, and at the RSA conference in 2018, we used Be an Ally as our hashtag. It actually trended, and I thought this was really pretty incredible until somebody turned around and said, you know, you can read that multiple ways. And I was like, right. So I don't know if you see it, but we're talking about be an ally, not the other ways that you can read that hashtag. Allyship is a new term, and a lot of meaning is poured into it by different people, and you may not agree with some of it. Here's how I use allyship very quickly. When a very well-known first century Jewish teacher walked the earth, he was asked the question, what is the most important law for us to keep? I'll paraphrase it like this. The most important law is to love the Creator with all you've got, and the second most important law is just like it, and that is to love your neighbor as yourself. So the attributes are of the Creator that we all possess and can practice every day are mercy, graciousness, slow to anger, kindness, truthfulness, being forgiving, compassionate, and just. That, my friends, is allyship. I want you to fill your cup with these attributes that you possess so that you have the opportunity to share them with the people around you. And on those days when it doesn't work, ask yourself, what's up with that? You know, there's so much more I could share with you. I'd be happy to connect with you more on LinkedIn. I want to just give a couple minutes here for any questions that you may have. We have just finished talking about belief, allyship, belief, resilience, and allyship. Ask yourself what it would be like to live in a world like that. It's possible if we all wear our bra every day. If you find yourself struggling, remember there's a lot of resources to help you with this. Wear your bra every day. Imagine it, dream it, do it. You can do this. Thanks for your time. Do we have any questions? I'm not quite sure what we do next.
Thanks, Karen. Let's see. I've been monitoring. I didn't see any questions so far, but if folks in general want to post questions for the AMA, please feel free to do so now, and I can read them to Karen. So we have a question from Aaron. What should we be looking for in someone who isn't reaching out but needs help?
Well, what should you be looking for in someone who needs help and they're not reaching out? And I would say, well, you've already seen something because you believe they need help and they're not reaching out. And your allyship in that situation is one, I think, of kindness, right? So when you can reach out to someone and say, hey, I just want to check in with you. How's it going? This just happened to me a couple of days ago because I had a tip that someone really needed to hear a word of kindness. And they were at a conference, actually. And I texted them and said, how's it going? And I didn't hear back. So I picked up the phone and called them and just said, hey, I've been thinking about you and I really want to chat. How's it going? So you can, don't ever be afraid. I think we all kind of have this nervousness that we're poking our face into something where we don't belong. But you be brave. The worst thing that can happen is they ask us to go away. At least you've done your kindness part to reach out. I hope that helps. Be sure to DM me on LinkedIn too. If you have any questions following up from this, I'll be happy to answer anything that I get in the next week or so.
See, we have another question from Slammer. Do you have methods to rescue those that have burnt out and left the community?
Wow. So in the 5-day online course, and I'm not here trying to push that, but one of the things that I emphasize in that is one of the reasons we burn out, and I've been there twice. So I'm kind of a slow learner sometimes, I guess. But one of the things that's very helpful is to know what you want and to be willing to set the boundaries around that will help you make sure that happens, and to know in a very clear way that you're working every single week on something that contributes to those goals of yours that are very important. So as an example, one of the goals that I set for myself, and it was an important one for me to set and be very explicit about because I was always so busy working, which was I create amazing experiences and memories with my family and my loved ones. That means that every week I take time, if not every day, but it's usually not every day, to do something about that goal, right? Even if it's making a great dinner or whatever, it's something that I'm doing. And I can tell myself at the end of every week that I am working on the things that are important to me. There's a lot more about that in the course, but that's one of the ways to do it, is to know what you want and make sure that you're setting boundaries that make sure that you can do them.
Thanks. See, we have another question from Aaron. Yes, what can we do to create a more inclusive community for underrepresented individuals?
Wow. Thank you for asking that question. We have so much work to do. Tech is a place where we're moving at a very, very fast rate. And in order to move very quickly, what we tend to do is self-select people who are like us, who think like us, who make decisions like us. And we have to be willing to be patient for a process where communications of diverse ways of communicating, whether a person is neurodiverse or ethnically diverse or gender diverse, how do we listen to them? How do we seek to understand? Because it takes time to do that. You will 100% always get better solutions and better decisions if you take that time. but it's frustrating for us. I think the number one thing we can all do is learn to slow down just a little bit. I always kind of use the phrase, slow is smooth and smooth is fast. Take the time to be slow because you'll go much faster in the long run.
Thank you. I think we might have one more question. We do. How can a company be more inclusive to parents?
Whoa, I love that question. So not just parents, but also people who are caring for elders, right? Because I did that 5 times while I was in cybersecurity. And I'm about to go back into cybersecurity again for the first time without children or grown-ups to take care of. Having on-site childcare, wow. Like if I had a way, if I had to go into the office, how I could have childcare. Now in work from home, we've really highlighted how hard it is for people who are caring for family members at home to be able to concentrate and focus. And I think we fundamentally have to change the way we think about the workplace. And having those conversations, those are fairly brave conversations to have. I think people are going to be a little bit afraid that they'll be seen as asking for special accommodations or whatever. But, start, if it's not happening in your workplace already, start the conversation. And let's be really clear about how hard work from home has been for anyone who is, it's been hard for everybody in different ways, but for family members, it's been particularly difficult. And we lost 10% of the women in the tech workforce due to work from home during the pandemic. It set us back dramatically in terms of any kind of progress towards equity in the workplace because so many people had to drop out. It's, I think the thing right now is just to make sure that the conversation doesn't go silent about how important it is for us to make sure that we value families, extended families, and every variety of family while we're trying to all make a great tech workplace. Thank you for asking the question.
Okay, I see a little bit more activity in the channel, so I'll see if there's another question coming. We do have another question. So this is from Punk Coder. How do we bring along management that are not fully on track with DEI?
Oh, yeah. I don't have a great answer for that. And if you just take a look at what's happening at some of the big tech firms right now, well, even this has been going on for decades, but the culture does not favor diversity, equity, and inclusion, just as I talked about. And some companies are making a difference. Intel is a good one. VMware is a good one, right? There's companies that are really working on it. For those companies that are not, there is cultural shift that needs to be happening. And the only way that's going to really, really change is when the message is coming down from the top. It's very hard to do culture change from the bottom or from anywhere in the middle. So my suggestion is it's conversation. It has to be really brave conversation if you've got individuals who they may have a blind spot. Let me give you some hope with that. I had 2 managers one time. This wasn't about diversity, equity, and inclusion, but I had 2 managers, both of them women, directors in my organization, who needed me to hear something they had to say to me because I was interfering in their jobs in a way that was making it hard for them to lead their organization. I was blind to this. They sat down one day and they said, "We have to talk to you." And they very bravely kind of laid it on the line. It's like, this is what you're really, really good at. We want you to do more of that. We want you to stop doing this because it's making our jobs hard. And I was blown away by their courage, and we were able to work out that difference because they were truly speaking to my blind spot. So you kind of have to gauge the person. If this is something where it's a belief system and they actually don't believe in DEI, then you're going to have a harder time, because poking at somebody's belief systems is a very difficult thing to do. But if you have someone who just has a blind spot and you can shed some light on that, I think that's a very good thing to do. I hope that helps. It's hard when that's the case.
And I guess I have a brief follow-up to that. Do you think, how do you think the approach for DEI, like, can that look different at different companies?
Well, yeah, I think when you say DEI, it means different things to different people, right? And having at the end of the day, here's what I found most helpful about DEI at a high level. When Intel made the decision that their internal workforce was going to reflect their customer base and demographics, they got very intentional about how they were going to rebalance their workforce. And one of the things that they found as they were doing that, and this is where our phrase about when we lift, one all rise comes from, is from the Intel experience. Because when Intel did that, one of the things that happened was, they had 50%, say they have 50% white men in the organization. And what they found was, for the first time in the organization, their voice was being heard. The big benefit of inclusion is not that we're hitting certain numbers. The benefit of inclusion is that everybody's voice gets heard, no matter who they are, and there isn't a weight given to somebody because of a particular class, gender, whatever that might be. And we don't really have meritocracy. We haven't achieved that. I think we even have a podcast out there called Meritocracy is Dead. But the truth of it is that if you can, this is the practice that has to start with each one of us. And this is why on our podcast, we talk about making the workplace, making the tech workplace better from the inside out. The inside is here. We all can do a piece. And the way we can do the piece is to make sure that we learn how to help other voices be heard. And, DEI is driven by lots of different motives and lots of different pieces of the organization. It's going to be different things in different places. But at the end of the day, it is, how do we show up? In my book, Allyship, DEI shows up as, how do we show up with kindness, mercy, graciousness, being slow, being patient, right? Being just, being compassionate. How do we show up with that every day? How do we fill our own cup so that we're able to fill other people's cup every single day with the way we come to work? I think that's how we're going to get there, to be honest. Grassroots.
Thank you so much. This is a great discussion.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I'm really grateful to have the chance to be here. And please, please, please connect with me on LinkedIn. I would love to hear from you.
Cool. Thank you very much.
Thanks.